I call the honourable member for Holt.
Thank you, Member for Tangi, and thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to speak in the time remaining about an insidious condition which affects many Australians, about 1.5 million Australians, in fact, and a number of our young, and that condition is diabetes. Recently, what I like to call a community champion, a local legend, Mairi-Anne Macartney, a mother of a sufferer of type 1 diabetes, Tess Macartney, came into my office and spoke to me about the stresses and strains as a parent of a loved one that has type 1 diabetes. Now, for the House's information, type 1 diabetes is a lifelong autoimmune condition that usually occurs in childhood but can be diagnosed at any age. It affects over 122,000 people in Australia alone. Over 1,800 Australians are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes each year. It's one of the most chronic conditions in children, and currently, Madam Speaker, there is no cure. Mairi-Anne asked me to provide a snapshot of what it is like to be a parent of a child each day, with Tess, for example. So each day starts at 7 a.m. for the Macartney household. However, when Mairi-Anne, the mother, wakes, her first thoughts are about Tess, who is now 15 years old. In fact, I met Tess when she was 10. Tess has had type 1 diabetes for 5 years. When Mairi-Anne wakes, she's worried. She's worried about whether or not Tess has died overnight from DIBS, which is death in bed syndrome, because with young people with type 1 diabetes, the body's glucose level can drop quite dramatically overnight, mostly without warning. And this is a horrifying thought that Mairi-Anne lives with each night and has asked me to raise with this place, in this place. Once Tess is up, Mairi-Anne has to weigh and measure out her food. Every carbohydrate must be taken into consideration, and that means cereal, bread, milk, fruit, every carbohydrate. And then on top of that, they basically have to determine how much insulin Tess needs for each snack, each meal and each drink. For everything Tess eats, whether she's at home, at school or at a party or at a friend's place, this process has to take place. And it's an arduous process. It's taken its toll on Tess, it certainly has. Meanwhile, at school, Tess has no school nurse. No one has been trained in diabetes management to look after Tess. Mairi-Anne has arranged a management plan at the school, which is a good school, but there's always a risk as to whether Tess has remembered the amount of insulin to take. Every day is a challenge for a parent with a child with type 1 diabetes. There's a constant worry about the future and the welfare of the child. And as I said, there's no cure. And to that effect, I welcome the Abbott government's recent funding announcement of $35 million towards finding a cure for this condition. Despite these fears, the Macartney family face on a daily basis, they remain positive and strong advocates in trying to obtain better outcomes for all families experiencing type 1 diabetes. As I said, Tess was diagnosed 5 years ago, and Mairi-Anne's response to that was to set up a group called Mairi-Anne Connect, and that's connecting families with information and support to explain what happens to children with type 1 diabetes and to provide the support for carers. Mairi-Anne Connect started with 4 families, has now grown to support 157 families in 4 years. It's a great group. It's led by Mairi-Anne Macartney, Kerry Trevitt and Shannon McPherson. They're working on 3 projects. The first one is to ensure new essential health aids like the Omnipod insulin therapy are made more accessible to diabetes families. The second project is to ensure a ministerial order is created for diabetes management in schools in Victoria. There's one for anaphylaxis, there needs to be one for diabetes. And the third project is to a fundraising walk in March 2014. I'm not sure how much time I've got. I think it's close to 5 o'clock, Madam Speaker. What I will say is that life is tremendously difficult.
Being 5 o'clock, the debate is interrupted.
Yep.